Hello, everyone. This is Jerry, the Night Vision Phantom, bringing you another round of video. Does Final Fantasy VI really need any introduction? Well, kinda. Stands at an interesting crossroads. 80s and 90s kids who grew up on the NES and SNES will certainly hold the first six Final Fantasy games to higher regards than those of the 2000s and later, whose first experiences might have been Final Fantasy VII and beyond. My condolences to those who played Final Fantasy XIII and lived to tell about it. Final Fantasy VI, though, is the last of a bygone era where strategy guides and the internet were expensive or unavailable, where games were rented from the video store or traded between classmates at the lunch table. I consider the 2D games the world of balance, if you will. Its magnum opus final boss, a dancing clown with a god complex. Then we have the 3D World of Ruin games, where Squaresoft gradually faded into becoming Square Enix, where its poster child is a mama's boy whose enormous sword is compensating for something. But I digress. You came here to watch me rank stuff, and rank I shall. Many of us old schoolers have played this game to death and know all the exploits, so I'll be ranking this list based on first impressions on first time playthroughs. So there won't be any Genji glove plus offering combinations, X magic, and quick exploits, or glitches like Wind God Gao that I'll be putting into consideration. And with that, let's get started. All right, so I've arranged the characters in order of when you might first name them in the game, not necessarily my personal order or anything like that. Just when you likely will come across them. Could vary a little bit. But first in the list, yes, we have our poster child of the game, Terra. Now, compared to the Magitech skills you have her use at the beginning of the game, having to use her basic magic after you lose access to them is a real downgrade. You can argue that it's nice to have magic at all, but later on, every character learning it might lower her usefulness slightly. Also, it's not obvious how Morph works, and you'll be confused why sometimes it goes down slowly versus seems to last forever. Still, she's with you for much of the game. She grows on you and has a good story. And great equipment draws. So, Terra, I'm giving you a solid A tier. Next, we have Locke. Despite being a thief, treasure hunter, he certainly seems a downgrade to Terra as the game goes on. Although, unlike your traditional thief class, he does get some overpowered weapons later on, like the Hawkeye. The Steel Command is a mixed bag, and likely you'll become frustrated at all the couldn't steal messages, or that all you actually steal are tonics and antidotes. There's a likelihood that you won't even have luck in your party when the steals matter. You won't even consider going back to the solitary island to steal elixirs and mega elixirs, anyways. So, with that, Locke, I give you B tier. Then we have Edgar. Edgar is awesome at the beginning of the game. His auto crossbow and flash are stronger than low tier magic. He can confuse groups of enemies with Noise Blaster, causing them to waste their turns, or damage enemies with Bioblaster for some early elemental damage, or even flash. Then the drill replaces your fight command in most cases after that. The only problem with Edgar is that he falls off in the latter half of the game and his later tools become less useful. Chainsaw is cool looking but can miss. Debilitator is a waste of a turn. And Air Anchor is too gimmicky and doesn't work against the enemies that matter. Still, he becomes a solid magic user and is extremely versatile, able to use just about any heavy equipment. So, with that, Edgar, I give you S tier. And then on to Sabin. He's better than Edgar in some ways and worse in others. Still, once Sabin is on your team, there's a good chance he might be in your final party. Pummel, Arabolt, and Fire Dance are your early go tos, and Suplex, while meme worthy, is nearly useless. Airblade is okay, as is Chakra, but I've never seen anyone say anything positive about Spiraler. Bun Rush, if you're able to find it or bother to grind levels to get it naturally, only adds to his usefulness. Any downsides to Saban is that he has limited equipment draws compared to some others, and his blitz inputs may be intimidating at first. By end game, you have a solid fighter who, very much like Edgar, is quite versatile. So I'll give you another S tier character. Next, we have Shadow. Oh boy, many of you are going to hate me for this, but Shadow will not be placed very high on this list. Reasons include abruptly fleeing your party at the end of battle, not knowing how to get him to join you after the Battle of Narshe, his scrolls being obsolete by the time you get them, and if you decide to throw anything besides ninja stars, it's an expensive endeavor. Plus, I bet the vast majority of you didn't even know that you should wait for him, if you know what I mean, making him a lost cause. In summary, you rarely get to use him effectively for the first half, probably won't get to use him at all in the latter half, and even then, in most cases, other characters just outshine him altogether. I'm going to give him a C tier, and that pains me to say. And now, Celes. At first glance, she's like the opposite of Terra magic-wise, using ice instead of fire, and having nearly, if not identical, equipment draws. Where she falters is, you guessed it, Runic. It's not intuitive at first. You'll wind up absorbing your own magic spells against tunnel armor, and you'll wind up taking action against him to cancel out the Runic, causing his magic to pass on through and wipe your party if you're too low level. However, the upside is that Celes seems to scale well for the latter half of the game, considering you're required to have her in your party. Runic becomes an afterthought once you get high tier magic and relics, and as well as being able to equip the best gear in the game like Illumina and Paladin Shield, if, and that's a big if, you know how to get them. Still, like Terra, she's a solid A tier. And here we have Cyan. Cyan is very much a mixed bag for me. He's actually more useful on your first playthrough than the subsequent ones. He has a good equipment draw, and yes, his dispatch ability has a strong defense piercing guaranteed to hit attack that is more useful than fight in some cases. You're even anticipating what future skills he might learn, only to realize that they're not all that good. Quadra Slam at Sword Tech level 4 is probably the furthest anyone cares to go charging up an attack until the more powerful Quadra Slice comes along, but by that point other options are faster and more powerful. Other options and other upsides include good equipment draws and strength, but downsides are poor magic and speed. He has his moments, and while he's not as effective as he should be, used well, he could be a contender for final parties. And so for that, I'm going to give you a solid B tier. Next is Gau. Poor Gau. He didn't do anything wrong. He's just a victim of circumstance. While his rages are a nice break in monotony, you'll find that it has more downsides than up for the casual player. Unless you know that Cat scratches the rages of rages for early and mid game especially, you'll find yourself quickly getting him out of your party for a member you can control. Yes, he's very exploitative if you know the right enemy and the right enemy statuses he inherits from them, but it's not intuitive at all, and in situations where you play as him, you're just going to pick the rages that you know are tried and true while spending very little time on the vault. He can't even equip any weapons, and his other equipment draws are just average at best. Sorry, Gau, you are C tier. And here is Setzer. Did any of you really like Setzer when you first got him in your party? Were you hoping for something gloriously useful when you used slots for the first time against the two cranes while escaping Vector, only to get Legomorph for a paltry amount of healing? Even on the occasions where you do get 3 in a row, the other effects you get are extremely rare or underperforming. His equipment draws are no better, and his fixed dice, while useful, are unlikely to be exploited the first time you play through the game, as you might not know to go to Kefka's Tower to get them first. The main thing that he has going for him is cool airships, bro, and that's it. So with that, Setzer, you're C tier. And here comes Mog, or as I like to call him, slightly better Gao. He's still uncontrollable with his dances, but he can be useful with good equipment draws and as a backup magic user. His dances are good against basic enemies at best and are nearly worthless against bosses. And also, it might not be obvious where to find all of them, especially the missable water rondo one. That is still not all that good. There's not much to say about Mog, but like the others, he gets a C tier. Now we have Realm. I know what most of you Final Fantasy VI veterans might say. She's the best magic user in the game. Yes, that's technically true. But the first time you use Sketch against Ultros for a couple hundred damage does not lead you to that conclusion. In fact, it might make you want to shelve her for the majority of the game. Her equipment draw isn't all that good, and while her fake mustache is useful, it's generally only useful for learning lures, which in turn are not all that useful, but I'll get to that in a moment. So yes, in hindsight, she is worthy of being in your final party due to her high magic stat. But first-time players will likely keep her on the airship until Kefka's Tower. So Realm, you're D tier. Now we have Strago. Playing the game for the first time, Westerners who never got a chance to play Final Fantasy V would know that Lures is basically a revamp of Blue Magic. But Strago is both weak, slow, and even has a low stamina stat. Not that players worry much about that one. His magic is high, but still pales in comparison to the other magic users. He even has poor equipment draws. Yes, if you can find the blue magic staples like Big Guard, they're helpful, but not game-breaking. And yes, Grand Train is powerful, but it's essentially a poor man's Ultima. Easier to acquire, but outclassed later on. As much as I'm a completionist, truly most of his lures are indeed worthless, and getting them requires specific situations in most cases. If you're playing the game casually for the first time, you'll be lucky to have learned a few more lures than what you started with. And with that, I also have to give Strago a D tier. Getting ready to wrap things up here with Umaro. Yes, players may say that he's useful in the Colosseum or in the Cultist's Tower, but those are unlikely to cross players' minds when first putting him into the party. I think after the novelty of the Berserker gimmick wears off, you'll just be sitting him on the airship, keeping Gao and the equipment NPC company. Umaro, there's no better way around it. You're uncontrollable, you're unperforming, and you are D tier. And finally, we have Gogo. Gogo can be exploitative, and indeed, Gogo can be overpowered with the right setup, but I would reckon very few of you knew about being able to customize abilities in the stats screen, unless by accident or if someone told you about it. Like Strago and Realm, most of Gogo's stats are underwhelming, and even the equipment draws are lackluster. Mimic can be fun, though, and thus I think Gogo is a fun character to play as. That being said, most players might not even know about where to find Gogo outside of a strategy guide, but to Squaresoft's credit, that was by design. I've debated the answer, and if you're lucky to find Gogo, I say you're looking at a decent C tier due to reasonable combat strategizing. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, my personal ranking for the Final Fantasy VI characters. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And like I said, remember, this is from a first-time playing, first impressions point of view. And I'm sure a lot of you had different experiences with these characters the first time you played them. And I'd be glad to hear about it. So feel free to share. Thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And like a phantom of the night, I must disappear. Have a good one.